In this video, you will learn how to divide by a fraction. Now, to understand how to divide by a fraction, we first must understand what a reciprocal is. Now, a reciprocal, by definition, would be two numbers whose product would equal 1, meaning when you multiply the two numbers, it would equal 1. Another name for this is called the multiplicative inverse. So, for example, if we had 6 and 1 over 6, those are reciprocals because when you multiply them, 6 times 1 6, that equals 1. Or if you had 3/4 and 4/3, those are reciprocals because when you multiply 3/4 times 4/3, the product equals 1. Now 1 would be its own reciprocal because 1 times 1 equals 1. And then 0 has no reciprocal because 0 times any number is 0, not 1. All right, so that's your definition of reciprocal. But how do you find a reciprocal of a given number? So basically, all you do is you switch the numerator and denominator. So you flip the top and the bottom of a fraction. So for example, if you were told to find the reciprocal of 2 over 5, you switch the top and the bottom to get 5 over 2. So 5 over 2 is the reciprocal of 2 over 5. If you had 9 over 4, the reciprocal would be 4 over 9. You just flip the top and the bottom. Now if you had 1 over 7, the reciprocal would be 7 over 1, which would just equal 7, because anything divided by 1 would be itself. Now if you have the number 8, so just a whole number, not a fraction, to find the reciprocal of this, it's going to be helpful to think of this as 8 over 1, because that is the same thing, right? 8 divided by 1 would still equal 8. We're not changing the value, just changing the way it looks. So this will help us as you think through the reciprocal of 8, because if you write it as 8 over 1, the reciprocal is easier to tell. You just flip the top and the bottom, so instead of 8 over 1, we have 1 over 8. Now the number 1 we can think of as 1 over 1, same thing, and if you flip the top and the bottom, you would still have 1 over 1, which would equal 1. So we've verified that the reciprocal of 1 would be itself. Now if you had a decimal, let's say 0.25, and you were told to find the reciprocal, it's probably easiest if you think of this as a fraction. So 0.25 should be a memorized fraction as 1 over 4. You should have that memorized. So it's 1 over 4, and the reciprocal of 1 over 4 is 4 over 1, or just 4. So the reciprocal of 0.25 would be 4. Now how does this relate to division with fractions? So the relationship is that when you divide by a number, it is the same thing as multiplying by its reciprocal. So let's take a moment and verify that. So we're going to prove to you that dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal, which would be 1 over 2. So if we were to take, for example, 8 divided by 2, 8 divided by 2 would equal 4. And 8 times 1 over 2 is the same thing as 8 over 1 times 1 over 2. So you multiply 8 times 1 to get 8 on the top, 1 times 2 to get 2 on the bottom. 8 over 2 would indeed equal 4. So we have verified that dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by 1 over 2. If you don't believe that, let's try one more example. We'll show with dividing by 3. So here we have dividing by 3, and we're going to verify that it's the same thing as multiplying by 1 over 3. So for this example, we're going to take 9 divided by 3. So if you take 9 divided by 3, we know that equals 3. Now if you take 9 times 1 over 3, the reciprocal, we still would get 3, right? Because on the top we have 9 times 1, the bottom we have 1 times 3, so 9 over 3 would be 3. So we have verified that dividing is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. And that is our process as we divide by a fraction. So next we're going to work with some examples. Here we have 8 over 5 divided by 3 over 10. So to divide by 3 over 10, that is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal, which would be 10 over 3. Now from here, we can simplify before we multiply. It'll make things a little bit easier. So anything on the top can divide with anything on the bottom. The 10 and 5 both can be divided by 5 to get 2 and 1. So now we have 8 times 2, which is 16, over 1 times 3, which is 3. So our solution is 16 over 3, which we can write as a mixed number. We take 16 divided by 3, we get 5, and the remainder would be 1. So our answer would be 5 and 1 over 3. Here is another example. 7 over 9 divided by 14 over 27. Now again, dividing is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So I can write this as 7/9 times 27 over 14. So we flip the top and the bottom of that second fraction. Now again, anything on the top can divide with anything on the bottom. So the 7 and 14, you can divide both by 7 to get 1 and 2. 27 and 9, you can divide both by 9 to get 3 and 1. So now we have 1 times 3 on the top over 1 times 2 on the bottom, which gives 3 over 2, which can be written as a mixed number. 3 divided by 2, we get 1 and then a remainder of 1, so that is 1 and 1 over 2, or 1 and 1/2. So our solution is 1 and 1/2. Here's a third example. 12 over 25 divided by 4 over 5. Again, we can think of the division of 4/5 as the same thing as multiplying by 5 over 4. And when we do this, we can simplify before we multiply, and anything on the top can divide with anything on the bottom. So the 12 and 4, you can divide both by 4 to get 3 and 1. 5 and 25 both can be divided by 5 to get 1 and 5. So now we have 3 times 1 over 5 times 1 to get 3 over 5 as our answer. Now here we have 4/3 divided by 2. This one's a little bit different just because we're dividing by a whole number. Now again, when we're dividing, we can think of this as multiplying by the reciprocal. Now the reciprocal of 2 we can find by thinking of 2 as 2 over 1. And the reciprocal of 2 over 1 would be 1 over 2. So I can think of this as 4 over 3 times 1 over 2. And now from here, we can divide both the 4 and the 2 both by 2 to get 2 and 1. So now we have 2 times 1, which would be 2, over 3 times 1, which is 3. So our solution is 2 over 3. Here's another one with a whole number. 5 over 7 divided by 25. Same process, we're dividing by 25, or 25 over 1, which is the same thing as multiplying by 1 over 25. Now to multiply, we can simplify first. We can divide the 5 and 25 both by 5 to get 1 and 5. Now we multiply across 1 times 1 over 7 times 5, which would give us 1 over 35 as our solution. Now to finish off, if we have mixed numbers, same exact concept, but the only thing different here is we want to first convert both of the mixed numbers to improper fractions. So make sure you remember how to do that, and the process for doing that, using the shortcut method, looking at 8 and 2/5, we would do 8 times 5 plus 2, and that gives us the numerator. 8 times 5 is 40, plus 2 is 42, and we put that over the 5. And then for 1 and 1/20, using the shortcut, we would do 1 times 20 plus 1 to get 21 on the top, and that is over 20 as our denominator. So now we have a problem just like we've been working with, where when we divide, we multiply instead by the reciprocal. So we would do 42 over 5 times 20 over 21. So anything on the top can divide with anything on the bottom. 5 and 20, you can divide both by 5 to get 1 and 4. 42 and 21, notice that 42 is twice 21. So I can divide both by 21. That would give me 2, right? 42 divided by 21 is 2. 21 divided by 21 is going to be 1. So we have 2 times 4, which is 8, over 1 times 1, which is 1. So our final answer would equal 8. And that concludes our lesson for today. We will see you next time.